الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba was forced to give over the Khilafah to Muawiyah because of the circumstances he was going through. And his brother, Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, when his turn came with Yazid, he rose against Yazid and he fought Yazid and he was martyred. He chose martyrdom over to have peace. Although the conditions were very different. If Imam Hussein was in the spot of his brother in his place, he would do the same. And Imam Hassan, if he was in Imam Hussein's place, he would do the same. But the issue was that when Imam Hassan made the peace treaty with Muawiyah, many of his followers complained and protested and were upset about this decision. They objected to the Imam, some of them saying to him when they confronted him, Assalamu alayka ya mudhill al-mu'mineen. Oh, you who have dishonored the believers. Why? Because you gave Bani Umayyah power over us. They questioned the Imam's decision. And the same thing happened to Imam Hussein. Some were complaining about why are you leaving towards Kufa? Why are you rising against Yazid? So the problem was with some of the followers, not the enemy. The enemy was, they were the enemy. But the problem and the discussion is about the followers. Sometimes the followers, they don't understand what the leaders are doing. So when one of the followers of Imam Hassan comes to him and he's very upset, he says, you have made us the servants of Bani Umayyah. You have given them power over us. Why did you hand Muawiyah the Khilafah? The Imam replied that, Wallah, what I have done for you is better for you than having the whole world. The Imam said, don't you know that I am wajib al-ta'ah? I have to be obeyed. I am your Imam and you're a Shia, you're a follower. That means to be obedient and submit to whatever I do. Even if you can't understand the wisdom behind it, but submission is expected from you. Then the Imam, he refers to the story of Musa and Khidr in the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He orders Musa alayhi salam, He tells him, I want to send you on a mission. It's an educational mission. I want you to learn something. I want you to find someone, abdan min ibadina, allamnahu min ladunna ilma. One of my ibad and servants, I want you to find him. I have taught him many things. I want you to learn some things from him. So Musa goes, he embarks on this journey to find Khidr. When he finds Khidr, the Quran says, فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. They found him. قال له موسى هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا. O Khidr, may I follow you? I want to learn some things from you. Khidr replies to him, قال إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. You will never be patient with what I do when you see what I do. You can't comprehend and understand. You won't be patient, you won't accept. وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا. How can you be patient when you don't know what is the wisdom behind it? Why I'm doing it? Musa said, قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا. Inshallah, you will find me patient and I won't disobey your order. So Khidr replied, فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا. But the condition is, if you want to follow me, don't ask anything. Don't question me. Don't question what I do. حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا. Until I tell you and explain to you why I did this. فانطلق حتى إذا ركب في السفينة خرقها. So they started the journey and they embarked on this ship and they reached their destination. Before leaving the ship, Khidr made a hole in the ship. He was destroying the ship. Musa was shocked. He said, are you planning to drown the passengers of this ship? Is that the plan? Is there wisdom behind it? Khidr said that, قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. Didn't I tell you you can't be patient with me? Musa said, لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت ولا ترهقني من أمري عسرا. I apologize. I forgot the condition. But I mean, what you're doing is strange. فانطلق حتى إذا لقي غلاما. So they went on the journey and continued until they saw a boy. فقتله. Khidr punched him in the face. He fell down. And Musa suddenly realized the boy is dead. This time, he couldn't be quiet. He said, أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس لقد جئت شيئا نكرا. You killed an innocent child? You're doing is evil. What are you doing? So Khidr reminded him again. قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. I told you you can't be patient. قال إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني لقد بلغت من لدني عذرا. Musa said, if I ask you or question you a third time, then you have an excuse to leave me. You're excused. I have no more excuse. So, one last time. فانطلق حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها فأبوا أن يضيفوهما. They reached a town. They didn't have food, water, they were hungry, and they asked the people in that town to accept them as guests, as liyuf, or give them food. But they were greedy people and they weren't welcome to strangers. They weren't Arab maybe. So they weren't welcome. No food, nothing. So they were wandering in that town hungry until they reached a house that was ruined. A ruin. The only thing left from that ruin was a wall. And Khidr looked at the wall. He saw the wall is falling. He saw the wall was crooked. So he said to Musa, let's fix the wall. Quran says, فأبوا أن يضيفوهما فوجدا فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض فأقامه. So they fixed it. It took maybe some hours because they had to make the wall straight and firm, and it was a ruin. Musa helped him out. He didn't complain, but after they finished the job and it was complete and he was hungry and frustrated, he couldn't keep quiet. So he said, at least we could have charged them for this wall we fixed and got some money to buy some food. You want to receive some money from it? Or you're doing charity for this town that didn't give us anything? He started complaining. This time, Khidr said, قَالَ هَذَا فِرَاقٌ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكِ. This is a parting and separation between us. You weren't patient. سَأُنَبِّئُكَ بِتَأْوِيلِ مَا لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. But I will tell you the wisdom behind what I did and why I did it. أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. The boat, the ship, it was owned by poor people. They were working with it in the sea. And the king at that destination was at war with another country, and he would confiscate any ship that was suitable, that could be used in that war. So I made a hole in the ship because they wouldn't confiscate it anymore. They wouldn't take it if they see it has a hole, and they could repair it later and then work with the ship. That is why I made a hole in the ship. وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْن فَخَشِينَا أَنْ يُرْهِقَهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. And the boy I killed, he was as they say, a bad boy. And his parents, they were believers, mu'mineen, and we were afraid that he will deceive them. You know, parents will do anything for their children. They'll go to any limits. If the children change their lifestyle and the parents don't want to lose them, they have to fit in that lifestyle of the child when they grow up. So, because of the love they have for the child, they will change. He says we were afraid that they will be deceived by this child and they will become disbelievers. فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما. So we wanted their Lord to give them another child that would be a good child, a righteous child for them. وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة. The wall that was in the ruin, the ruined house belonged to 2 orphans in that town, and under it was a treasure. It belonged to their father. He was a good man, and we wanted this treasure to reach the hands of his children, because if the wall would fall, then the people of the town, they would confiscate the treasure and take it. So I repaired the wall in order for them, when they grow up, they could find the treasure by themselves and use it. ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. This is the explanation and the wisdom behind what I did. And Khidr says, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I didn't do it by myself, on my choice. It was God who was telling me to do these. So Imam al-Hasan is referring to this story and telling that follower, didn't you know that Musa alayhi salam, he became angry of what Khidr was doing because he didn't know the wisdom behind his doings. And the same case is with me when I am giving the Khilafah over to Muawiyah, when I have no choice. This is the best option. And this will be better for you than having all the world. We're not going to explain why Imam Hassan gave to Muawiyah the Khilafah and how it benefited the Shia. The main discussion is something else. It's about when we are facing laws in Islam, verses in the Quran that are not compatible with our time in our lives and where we live, especially in the West. We as Muslims come across Islamic laws that don't fit in this time, in this society. We cannot explain them to non-believers, and neither can we explain it for ourselves and the believers. And we're struggling to find an answer that will make them confident. So the thing is that the Quran is telling us there are laws, there are many things that we can't explain. Khidr said to Musa that you have to follow me and be patient and submit to what I do unless I tell you why I've done it. Some of the things we don't know the wisdom of, we can't find explanation right now. So we have to be patient. We might not know the answer in this dunya, but what is expected of us is to submit, because the source we are relying on is authentic, it's reliable. If Musa was to follow Khidr, he was to accept whatever he does, to submit, because he knew that Khidr was appointed by God himself. If we are to follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams after the Prophet, and they tell us things that are difficult for us, they do things that we cannot understand, it's expected that we submit and accept. Maybe we could find an answer, an explanation, and maybe not. The point is that we should be patient and accept it. If you want to question something in the Quran or a law in Islam, you could question the source. You could question the Quran. Is the Quran reliable? Is it authentic? Is it fabricated? Let's discuss that. You could discuss usul ad-din. Do we have a God? Has he sent messengers? Has the messenger appointed imams after him? Are these imams chosen by Allah? We could discuss these. Usul ad-din are not matters that we could follow blindly. Usul ad-din, the 5 principles of religion, Tawheed, the oneness of God, Nubuwwah, Allah is sending messengers, prophecy, prophethood, and Imamah, and Adl, and Ma'ad, the successors of the prophets, and the resurrection, and Allah being just and Adil. These are things that we cannot do taqleed in. We have to prove them to ourselves. We have to argue and see the reason in them. We have to look for the reasons. We cannot accept them. Just because our fathers, our mothers taught them to us, and they told them that Muhammad is the prophet and Ali is his successor. No, there is a day of judgment. We can't accept these blindly. We are intellectual beings. We don't accept anything they tell us, what our fathers had told us. We have to do our research. We have to study. We have to learn these by reason. But what we cannot question is furu' ad-din. Furu' ad-din, the 10 furu' ad-din, salat, sawm, hajj, the ahkam. Furu' ad-din is ahkam, the Islamic laws, masail shar'iyyah. Although they're not certain, the maraji', not all the fatwas are 100% certain, but this is what they've come, the conclusion they've reached. If we know for sure that these are the words of the Prophet and the Imam, then we cannot question why. Why is the inheritance of women half of what men receive? Why is the atonement and diya of women half of what it is for men? We have many issues, especially in the West. Why women cannot lead the prayer? Why is it that women cannot become marja' taqleed? Women issues, women rights, homosexual issues. Why can't someone that desires his own sex, why can't he have relationships with them? These are many issues that we're facing, especially in the West. So, what can we do? We're struggling to find convincing answers to these, but we can't. We could try. I mean, like they say, the answers they come up with, we come up with. We could try our best. Why do women receive half the inheritance of men do? Well, they reply, men, they provide for the family. They put food on the table. So it's obvious that they should have more. Their share should be double. But what would you do when they reply that today in the West, women also provide? They also put food on the table. I mean, does the law change because of that? No, it doesn't change. But the problem is, if you are looking for convincing answers to give to non-believers, then you're going to have a problem. Because whatever you tell them, they'll have an answer. It won't be convincing. Some things would, some things won't. We'll try our best to find the most convincing answers. But eventually, this discussion isn't how we could convince non-believers, brothers and sisters. It's for us, the believers, the Muslims who are weak in their faith. When they face these problems and they struggle for answers, they come to the conclusion that, those laws were for a certain time and a certain place. They were good for that time and that place, but now things have changed. They reach these conclusions. This is what we're talking about. Our discussion is with our brothers and sisters, the believers, the Muslims, who their minds become enlightened suddenly, and they find new solutions for themselves. That's who we're trying to talk to. This is what the discussion is for them. If we can't come with answers about why we have these laws in Islam and religion, the Quran says you should be patient. maybe you will receive the answer and maybe you won't, but you have to submit. Because you know the source is reliable, you know the source is authentic, then follow it. If you're not sure about the source, go do the research. That's what you could question. But if you found the source, the Imam is reliable, then whatever you hear from their mouths, you do it, you accept. Yes, you could question, is this hadith really truly by the Imam? Has the Imam said these words? You could question that. But if you know it's from the Imam, well, it's not our job. It's the scholars, that's why we do taqleed, right? It's their job to find out if the ahadith, these sources are authentic, reliable. Has the Imam spoken these words? Are these his own words? And they may reach conclusions, they may be certain of most of them, some of them, and most of them are not 100% certain. They rely on a possibility, a very large possibility. That's why they say most of our ahkam are dhanni. They're not yaqeen, they're not certain. But they're pretty sure that they're from the Imam and they're right. But they're not, it's not mutawatir in a way that they're 100% sure. Anyways, that's another discussion. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So Allah is teaching us in this surah and the story of Musa and Khidr that you have to submit. And maybe we can't know the wisdom behind what is told us, what we know. And this, for the West, it's not something they could understand. Please pay attention to this point very carefully. The Western mentality is very different from our mentality. Their ideology, the way of their life, is all based on the human being, human rights, what a human needs, what a human wants. The human is the core of their system, whereas our system has another core, it's God. What God wants from us, what He sees best for us, what He demands us, our system is based on that. That's our foundation. Our language is different. The mentality, we don't understand each other's language. I'm not talking about English and Arabic. The mentality, we cannot understand each other because the core of these religious, Abrahamic religions, they are based upon what God wants from us, not what the human being wants. What are the human's rights? Homosexuals, they say, some of them have the genes. It's in their genes, desiring the same sex. It's in their genes. They can't do anything about it. It's out of their hands. They can't control it. It's what they claim. If that's true, if that's the case, we say that if you really desire, the same sex, that's a problem you're going to have to face, and you have to be patient with it. Because everything in our system is based on what God wants and what He demands and what He sees best. That's why even if they do desire that, we say, no, it's not allowed in our system, in our ideology. It's irrelevant what the human wants and needs. It doesn't matter what you need and what you want, what you desire, what your nature is. That doesn't matter. What matters is what God wants. God is the core. He's the fundamentals of this religion is what God says. But the Western mentality, no, it's become the human being. So when the language is totally different, the mentality is totally different. We can't understand each other. So we shouldn't try in sometimes, some ways. We could try to convince as much as we could, but we won't reach a conclusion in many cases. We have to understand that. That doesn't mean we won't look for answers for them and try to convince them and bring them closer to religion. But the problem is the core. The difference is in the core. Whatever you do, that the other things they're not gonna come out good. It's the core that's different. So let's start. You want to start a discussion? Start from the core. Let's discuss God. That's what we should discuss. Let's discuss the Prophet. Let's discuss the Imam. You want to discuss? Why discuss the Islamic laws? Why is the Quran says this? Why do you do this? I mean, all the things they accuse of us, women discrimination, gender discrimination. These things, human rights, women rights, freedom of speech, freedom, all kinds of freedom. We have no problem with freedom, but we look at it differently. We have a different perspective. There was a companion of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam. His name was Bishr al-Hafi. And Bishr, before he became a companion, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam was walking by his house when he heard the noise of music coming from the house and singing, and he saw this slave girl standing by the door. He stopped and he asked her, "Who is the owner of this house? Who's your owner?" She said, "His name is Bishr." He asked her, "Is he a slave or is he a free man? أهو حر أم عبد?" She said, "Of course he's a free man. How could he own a house, and how could he own me if he's a slave? He's a free man. That's obvious." But the Imam was trying to get to something else. He said, "Yes, you're right. He is free. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be doing this." So he passed by. Bishr was inside the house. He was hearing some discussion occurring outside the house. He asked the servant girl, "Who were you talking to? What did he say?" And she said, "Well, he asked me if the owner of this house is hurrun am abd, is he free or is he a slave?" And I said, "Of course he's free." And then he replied, "Yes, if he wasn't free, if he was a slave, he wouldn't be doing this." So Bishr understood what the Imam was meaning. The Imam was saying that someone who is free does whatever he wants. But someone who is a servant of God, abdun lillah, he obeys, he submits to whatever God says, whatever God wants. So Bishr ran without wearing any shoes, hafi, with his bare foot, towards the Imam, and he repented on the hands of the Imam. And from that day on, he never wore shoes. He was always hafi, because he wanted to remember the moment, the incident that made him turn and change and come to the right path. So he remained barefoot and hafi until the rest of his life, just to remember What changed him? When did he change? How? In one position was he when he changed? He didn't want to forget. The question is, are we free? Do we have freedom? Yes, of course, la ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion, right? We have freedom. You are free to be under the rule of God, and you are free to leave. If you want heaven and paradise, well, you can't be free. If you want this life, you could be free. Freedom is there. La ikraha fi din. We don't force anyone to become religious, to accept God's rule. There's no force, there's no compulsion in religion. La ikraha fi din. You are free to choose to follow this path or not. That's what we have to realize. If you want to have freedom, then you're not under the rule of God. You could have this dunya, but you won't have the akhirah. You won't have paradise. If you want to have paradise, you have to be an abd. You have to be a servant. You have to be abdun lillah. So, we have no problem with freedom, human rights, women's rights, homosexuality, Islam. We are free to do those and accept those and follow those ideologies. The freedom is there, but you won't be under the rule of God. You're not the servant of God. You have to choose. You want to be free? It's okay. La ikraha fi din. But if you want deen and religion and God and paradise and heaven, then you can't be free to do whatever you please. Even if you have that gene in your nature who desires your own sex, you're not free to do what you desire. You're an abd, you're a servant. You don't do what you desire. You submit to what your leader and master says. That's the religious mentality and ideology. So, Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, he told this companion the story to make him realize that if you're following me and you believe in me, then you have to accept. The same case was with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When Imam was Sallu ala Muhammad wa when Imam was leaving Medina and Mecca and going towards Kufa, some people came, like Ibn Abbas, and trying to tell the Imam and convince him, don't go to Kufa, they will betray you, don't do this. Even his brother Ibn Hanafiya trying to convince him out of, his love for his brother, trying to convince his brother, the Imam, don't go to Kufa, they will betray you. But the Imam, the real followers, those that had ma'rifah and knowledge, they never questioned the Imam, even though they couldn't understand maybe why the Imam is heading and why is he doing what he's doing. So the real followers would follow and submit. The Imam had no choice but to leave Medina. As you know, the governor of Medina asked the Imam to pay his allegiance to Yazid, and the Imam refused. When the Imam refused, the governor had the order to behead the Imam. He said, this is the order from Yazid. Either you pay allegiance or you should be beheaded. So the Imam told him, give me until tomorrow. Give me some time. So tomorrow, the Imam fled Medina. He left Medina, going towards Mecca. He couldn't stay in Medina anymore. And the governor, he destroyed Imam Hussein's house and the house of Abu al-Fadl Abbas, because They were outcasts considered to him. They had no more home in Medina. They couldn't go back to Medina. They went to Mecca and they stayed in Mecca for 4 months. But when they found out that Yazid is sending assassins to Mecca to assassinate the Imam couldn't stay in Mecca anymore. So he left Mecca, going towards the only option he had, which was Kufa. And as you know, in Kufa, he couldn't enter Kufa. So the Imam had no place in Medina, and he had no place to go in Mecca, and he had no destination to go. And as the poet says in Arabic, وَقَدْ انْجَلَى عَنْ مَكَّةَ وَهُوَ ابْنُهَا. The Imam left Mecca and he was the son of Mecca. وَبِهِ تَشَرَّفَتِ الْحَطِيمُ وَزَمْزَمُ لم يدر أين يريح بدن ركابه كأنما المأوى عليه محرم. He had no safe haven, no shelter, nowhere to go. مشردون نفوا من عقر دارهم كأنهم جنوا ما ليس يغتفر. It was as if they had committed a big sin, a sin that would not be accepted. So the Imam was going towards Kufa. Maybe the only place he could head is Kufa. But at the same time in Kufa, when the Imam is going to that city, you have Muslim ibn Aqil. He's astray in the streets of Kufa, wandering, looking for somewhere to shelter him. Muslim ibn Aqil, the messenger of Imam Hussein, has no shelter in the city of Kufa. He is wandering the streets, where to go. Some narrations mention that Muslim wasn't alone. He had 2 sons, Muhammad and Ibrahim, with him. 2 small children he had taken to Kufa with him. And he was alone with 2 children, taking them. They had put a bounty on the head of Muslim. Where could Muslim go? It was night, it was dark. So he headed to the house of Shuraih al-Qadi. He knocked the door. Shuraih came at the door and said, Muslim, what are you doing here? I cannot give you shelter. Why have you come at my house? He said, I don't want shelter from you. I want you to give my boys shelter. Let them be in your house. I will leave and go. So Imam Muslim, he gave his children to Shuraih al-Qadi, and the children, the 2 sons, Muhammad and Ibrahim, they were standing by the door looking at their father go away. So he bade them farewell. He was walking away and he heard his sons crying out loud and calling their father. So Muslim, he came back to them and he hugged them and he kissed them and he bade them farewell a second time. And he started to leave. But again he heard them crying and calling their father. He went to them a 3rd time and tried to calm them down, because he knew this is the last time he will see his children. He won't see them again. How your heart breaks for Muslim ibn Aqil at that moment, when his children, his 2 sons, they won't let him leave. They are hanging to Muslim. But that was nothing compared to Abu Abdullah in Karbala. The Imam came towards the tent of his family to bid them farewell. After all the companions were killed, the Imam came and called out, Ya Sukaina, Ya Fatima, Ya Zainab, wa Ya Kulthum, عليكن مني السلام. When they heard the call of Imam Hussein, they all came out of the tents and they surrounded the Imam. One girl holding his shirt, the other was grabbing the Imam's sleeve, and another would hold the Imam's hand. They wouldn't let the Imam go. So Kaina came in front and she said, أبا استسلمت للموت. Father, have you surrendered to death? Imam Hussein replied, كيف لا يستسلم للموت من لا ناصر له ولا معين. How can I not surrender to death when I have no one to help me, O daughter? So Kaina said, Abata. This broke the heart of Imam Hussein. Ya Aba Abdullah. She said, Abata, ruddana ila haram jaddina. Abata, oh Father, take us back to Medina. Don't leave us here in this desert alone. Imam replied, هيهات هيهات لو ترك القضاء لخفى ونام. My daughter, if they have left me a choice, I would have stayed in Medina. So he held her in his arms and he wiped the tears out of her eyes. He said to her, O Sukaina, لا تحرقي قلبي بدمعك حسرة ما دام مني الروح في جثماني. در این صحراست شاه بی سپاهی. در این صحراست شاه بی سپاهی که مانندش نباشد هیچ شاهی. به میدان می رود اما به حسرت کند سوی حرم گاهی نگاهی. الا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم تقبل منا هذا القريب بأحسن قبولك واقض حوائج المحتاجين يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.